So if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this on the channel, you can show your appreciation by clicking on the PayPal link in the description box, and you can donate any amount that you feel is equivalent to the value of this video. Also, leave us a thumbs up. It helps us get more views.
Sitting in for Owen Schroyer. Last week, we learned some of the most extraordinary things in the entire time that I've been involved in American politics. We now know definitively that the Obama administration was actively involved in running guns to ISIS. We also know that the Obama administration, in order to preserve their secret Iranian nuclear deal, was protecting Iranian drug running operations where they were actually importing cocaine to the United States. Now, there is no statute of limitations on the crime of treason. And in both cases, I believe these activities are treasonous, which leads us to the question of what Jeff Sessions is doing at the Justice Department and what our Attorney General is going to do about these extraordinary, indeed shocking crimes by the Obama administration. In the coming segment, we're going to be taking your calls, and that number is 1-888-201-2244. Again, 1-888-201-2244. You see, we value the two-way dialogue here at InfoWars. Week, I gave an interview, it was Friday, for C-SPAN.
Newsmakers program is Roger Stone, a longtime Republican strategist and the author of The Making of the President 2016, How Donald Trump Orchestrated a Revolution. Thank you very much for being with us.
Great to be here. My thanks to C-SPAN for this opportunity.
And joining us with the questioning is Michael Isikoff of Yahoo News, chief investigative reporter, and Tom LaBianco, who is with the Associated Press reporter who covers politics and Washington, D.C. And Mr. Stone, let me begin with the issue of Robert Mueller. Do you suspect that he is preparing charges against the president?
Well, I believe that his inquiry is politically motivated. I think that we've seen extraordinary evidence in the last couple weeks, the tweets, the email records, the contributions to Democrats that indicate that his is a partisan hit squad. I think this is a political proceeding rather than a legal proceeding. And I have said that I believe that the president's lawyers are naive about Mr. Mueller's intentions. I think they misunderstand the deep enmity that the political establishment in both parties has for the president and their absolute resolve to remove him on any pretext whatsoever. To me, a strategy of just turning over hundreds of thousands of documents, waiving executive privilege, and relying on the innate fairness of Robert Mueller is a foolish strategy. So I think that we have to see what comes out of General Flynn's plea deal. General Flynn has said that a senior member of the president's transition team directed him to contact the Russian ambassador to set up a meeting, a perfectly legal action on General Flynn's part. So perhaps Mr. Mr. Mueller is preparing an indictment of others. It's interesting to me that if Mr. Mueller should proceed against the president or any of his associates, to me it appears that it would be some kind of process-related indictment, perjury, obstruction, nothing relating specifically to collusion with the Russians to affect the outcome of the election.
Do you think there is anything in the president's tax returns that could lead to charges?
I absolutely do not. I have long thought that perhaps the president isn't putting his tax returns out because the total income, while would be extraordinary for the rest of us, perhaps not as large as some people might expect. But if you go back to the campaign, I have long thought that the president should put his tax returns out to lay this to rest. We know that he took legitimate deductions for losses on a very large scale, but That's the tax code. If you don't like the tax code, you can change the tax code. As a savvy developer and businessman, the president has taken advantage of the perfectly legitimate tax laws in that area. But I don't think there's any business relationship with Russian entities or anything of that type.
Let me turn to Michael Isikoff of Yahoo News.
Yes. So just to follow up on the Mueller issue, you just wrote in the Daily Caller that my advice to the president is he must completely disempower and dismantle Mueller's fraudulent rogue prosecution gang. So to be clear, first, have you spoken to the president about this, and have you specifically told him he should fire Mueller?
Well, I don't believe that that he should fire Mueller, so I would not have told him that, and I haven't told him that. I believe that the president should ignore the incorrect advice of his attorneys, who appear to have told him that he doesn't have the authority to issue directives to the Attorney General of the United States. The Department of Justice is an extension of the executive branch. The president should order the Attorney General, Mr. Sessions, to appoint a special counselor in the matter of Uranium One. That would necessarily put Mr. Mueller, Mr. Comey, Mr. McCabe, and even Mr. Rosenstein under immediate federal investigation. And I cannot see how they could proceed in their current jobs under that circumstance.
All right, well, before we get to the Uranium One, though, I'm a little confused because you wrote he should completely disempower and dismantle Mueller's gang, but but now you're saying he shouldn't fire him. So how does he completely disempower and dismantle the prosecution team?
By the appointment of a special prosecutor in Uranium One. My article goes on with the etymology of that scandal. I think it would be impossible for Mueller to proceed. Therefore, I think he would be checkmated, and therefore it would have that effect.
Have you given this advice directly to the president?
I have not.
Tom LoBianco of the Associated Press.
Roger, thanks for doing this. I want to follow up on Steve's opening question. It sounds like you're saying yes to that, to the question of whether there will be some type of charges against the president for whatever the reason, political, legal, justified, what have you. But it does seem like your answer is yes. Is that correct? Is that where we're headed?
Well, that is my concern. That is what I fear. I believe it would be a trumped-up, process-related charge, and given the erosion in public confidence and the exposures about the partisan nature of this inquiry in the last couple of weeks, whether Mr. Mueller could sustain that in the court of public opinion remains to be seen. The president, as you know, has been told by his lawyers that he will get a letter exonerating him on matters pertaining to Russian collusion. First it was by Thanksgiving, then Christmas, then the first of the year. Now I read they're saying February. I just think it underestimates the resolve and the partisan nature of this inquiry. Let me be clear. I don't think the president has committed any crime whatsoever. I think that this is a political proceeding, the first step of a potential coup d'etat based on the deep resentment and enmity for the fact that this president is an outsider and he is pushing a reform agenda that upsets many among the elites in both parties.
Roger, let me hop in on that coup part. So you're working on a book about this, right? The 25th Amendment and the potential for removal of the president. That's correct?
Well, I may be.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, Vanity Fair reported that I was working on a book entitled The Downfall of Donald Trump. I never said that.
Okay.
And I never used those words, and to their credit, they made a correction.
Okay.
If the president is taken down either by Mr. Mueller in what I would consider to be a rogue effort, or in some kind of trumped-up 25th Amendment move, you see Joe Scarborough and Senator Corker and Don Lemon and others increasingly saying he's crazy, he's insane, he's mentally unbalanced. That's all nonsense. He is the same person I've known for 40 years. He's sharp as a tack. He has his own, shall we say, unique style. But you see that as the plan B for the establishment. Now, this is a book I hope that I do not have to write for their Newsmakers program. And I laid out there what I reiterate here today. Just because the president is on a political high now, do not think that the deep state Quislings inside both parties don't intend to take down this president one way or another. Since the inquiry by Robert Mueller has been thoroughly discredited in the last several weeks, should Mueller shoot and miss, I have no doubt whatsoever that they will try a 25th Amendment takedown. Now, let me explain to you how that works. In order to trigger a 25th Amendment removal of the president, you would need a majority of the cabinet plus the vice president. They would declare the president non compos mentis, no longer able to discharge his duties. Unthinkable, you say? Well, not really. Unfortunately, there are some in the Trump cabinet, some, I stress, who cannot be trusted, who are not loyal to this president and his agenda. And they are resolved to remove this president by any means necessary. So do not underestimate the deep enmity of the deep state and the resolve of the politics as usual crowd in both parties to try to end the reform agenda of our great president. This will be refired again next year. You'll notice that the Don Lemons and the Joe Scarboroughs and the Senator Richard Corkers and Robert Corker and others continue to say, oh, the president's crazy, the president's insane, the president's nuts. No, he isn't. He is just as sharp as a tack. He is the same man I've known for 40 years. But watch for the uptick in this kind of commentary after the first of the year, when the deep staters move to Plan B, a 25th Amendment strategy. You heard it here first on InfoWars. It's just as true today as it was 3 weeks ago. Just because the president has the wind now to his back with a historic tax cut does not mean that the deep staters will give up in their resolve to undo the results of the last election. If I sound like Paul Revere here, I'm doing it on purpose. If I'm trying to strike a warning, yes, that is the goal. The deep state will never get over the president's historic upset election.
Hey, everybody.
If you're interested to learn how to create content and spread content, we'll show you how. Go to the Operation How YouTube channel, click on the About button, and then click Message. Send us an email. If you want to engage, become an info warrior, we will train you up.
If you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon below the video to get notified when the latest new content drops.
Keep us in your prayers. We get a lot of resistance for putting these videos out, but to Yahweh be the glory.